So you want to know about core training and to see some really good core training techniques. Today we're going to take you out on the gym floor. Yesterday we discussed our beliefs around core training. Today we're going to take you out on the gym floor and we're going to demonstrate. We're going to get stuck into a couple of our favorite core training techniques. We're also going to talk about bracing for heavy weightlifting, and we're going to dive into the world of weightlifting belts and give you our feedback and our opinions. All that and more coming up right after this. We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.
In case we haven't met, my name is Rad Burmeister. That's my brother Yani Burmeister. We are the co-founders of Unity Gym and the co-creators of the UMS, the Unified Movement System. And that is Phil White over there, our resident physiotherapist and sports massage dude, and just all-round good guy.
The dude, the Dr. Phil.
And today we're talking about the core and God knows what else. And if you've been watching us for a while and you want to get started working with us, you have an amazing opportunity where you can get 1 month free online coaching if you click the link in the description.
Come into our circle.
Come into our inner circle. Join the tribe for a month free.
Okay. Very quickly, before we go out on the gym floor, I want to talk about a little bit of research. We'll do the theory first of all, because there is differing opinions in what people believe to be the best lifting form and technique around core and bracing and posture and all that sort of thing. And there's some very different opinions out there. So we want to go into leave you with something that's going to be usable, something that you can practically take out of here. The core training stuff that Rad's going to demonstrate is great for everybody, but if you're more advanced and you're lifting heavy already and you've progressed beyond basic core training and things like that, which I hope most of you have, then this is going to help you out as well. And it's kind of a big breakthrough, I guess, because you're taught always to arch the back when you lift, and there's a lot of good research coming out now that's suggesting that might not actually be the best approach. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a topic that's obviously everyone's got very strong opinions on, and I think just as, you know, everyone's learning more about it, getting a bit smarter, it kind of comes down to getting what feels comfortable, what feels strong. There's some really, there's probably, you can do it many ways and your body will handle it, but it's all about just managing that load, getting it right.
Yeah. What's your opinion on what's your belief before we get started on posture or lumbar posture?
Oh, I think everybody's doing it wrong except us. So do what we say.
Voice of reason, voice of anarchy. Voice of reason, voice of anarchy.
I think that my 2 cents, as quickly as I can say it is, I think that one of the biggest mistakes that people make is to think that your spine is not designed to move through movement, and that one of the things that we get smashed for the most on social media is when people see pictures of me doing a Jefferson curl or a loaded forward flexion, and people go, oh my God, you should never do that to the spine, which is just laughable to me because it's one of the things that's given me the greatest relief over the...
Yeah, I 100% agree with, and I think it's just such a good example of the body gets used to doing what you spend your time doing. So if someone like you you've followed your program and you've got to the point where you can load up that curl nicely, then it just shows how good the body is at dealing with what it's prepared to do. So but if someone who had never done anything like that before just went straight into a heavy weight, that could be a bit challenging.
Absolutely.
But which is exactly why your program works it up from going to unloaded and straight into and developed it so your tissue
prepared for it.
And I've got one more thing to say on that, which is...
we have no sound that whole time?
No, you guys are talking, it's just going on the right...
It's, what you just said is so true, and it's all about progressive overload, because another thing that people say, well, how could you post a photo like this on social media? If some people did this, they'll kill themselves. And I'd say, well, why don't you go and slam everybody that's posting a picture of themselves doing a handstand on social media? Because if 99% of people try to handstand, they'll smash themselves. Yeah. But that's how we do things. You've got to grab people's attention. So you're going to show,
100%.
You're going to show, or Bass showing himself squatting 300 kilos. Is that negligent? Well, if I tried that, I'd crush myself.
No, I agree.
But
I think
should he stop doing it? No way. Of course not.
No,
it's all about showing what's possible.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the spine is so much more resilient than people give it credit for. So, yeah. 100%.
Hello, Quark. Morning, mate. We
Morning,
apologise for the sound muck up there. We had the wrong cord in the mixer, and you were actually only listening to the microphone through the iPad, which was running the system. But now we should be sounding real good.
All good, guys.
Yeah. Okay, let's just have a quick look. And I am literally going to read this off the Sarah Key discussion notes that we got recently. Sarah Key, if you don't know, check her out on YouTube. She is a very, very good physiotherapist, and she has quite strong beliefs on spinal movement and
Well, she's a physiotherapist that's specialised in the spine, hasn't she?
yes.
Like, wouldn't that be an accurate description? Like,
It is, yes, but the thing with Sarah and her work is, and she's really working hard now to validate her work and her theories, but a lot of it, because it hasn't been validated in the research labs, but she's got a lot of skin in the game. You know, she's literally treated thousands of people over her career working in clinics.
now, and
Yeah, and she's got a lot of experience, hands-on experience, and now she's working very hard to validate her theories in the lab, which will be very exciting to see. But anyway, this is actually a list of other people's work, and you know the general consensus is that we shouldn't be arching the back during our weightlifting, our heavy lifting, because it actually sort of hollows. Now, I'll read some notes here. Arching the back to lift is unnatural, awkward, and unstable. Arching the low back by 4 degrees unloads the disc by 40%. Arching the back loads the fragile, sensitive, what is this? Apophyseal facet joints.
Yep.
Geez, I'm glad I got you here. Arching the back disables the posterior ligamentous lock and lumbo-dorsal fascia. Now, I'll get Phil to just explain some of these in layman's terms afterwards. Arching the back makes it hard to pull in the tummy. Arching the back, and I'm sure a lot of you core zealots out there will understand what I'm talking about with pulling in the tummy. That's the way we cue to activate the transverse abdominis, is to pull in the belly, pull in and elevate the belly button. Arching the back reinforces emergency function spasm of the erector spinae. Arching the back causes reflex underactivity of the multifidus, which again, the core fans out there will understand what the multifidus is. It's not an erector, it's a segmentational stabilizer of the spine, isn't it? Yeah. And arching the back makes it hard to prime the discs to make the segments more stable. So these are findings from a whole list, and I'm going to list the studies out in the description I already have if you want to have a look deeper at this. But just quickly, in layman's terms, Phil, if you can, in under a minute, explain arching the back loads the fragile, sensitive apophyseal facet joints.
Yeah, so there's a whole lot of jargon in there, and I think the big takeaways is that there's muscles that are controlling each segment, so each vertebra. There's muscles that are really kind of going quite local to that, and then there are muscles that are going along the whole line of the spine, and they're going to be more treating the spine as one piece, whereas these intersegmental muscles are treating each vertebra slightly, like a bit more separately. So I guess what this is saying generally is that you're going to be using those big global muscles, we'll call them, which are treating the whole spine as one, and so you're using them much more of those than those intersegmental ones. In terms of apophyseal facet joints, basically when you're extending, so when you're arching back like that, then it's just the joints that stop that end range movement. It means that they're just going to be pressing up against each other, and that can be a bit aggravating if you repetitively do that or do it under load that you're not prepared for.
Yep, okay. Arching the back disables the posterior ligamentous lock and lumbo-dorsal fascia. Do you have any way of explaining that just very quickly? This here was a presentation that she did for other practitioners like Phil, like myself. There was doctors, physios, chiropractors in the room.
Don't you think Phil's dulled it down?
Yeah, I think just with the ligamentous structures, basically when you think about active versus passive stability of your body, you've got the muscles attach to become tendons, which attach into bone, and so that's one way of moving and supporting the skeleton. But then you've also got ligaments, which is attaching a bone to a bone. So often people get a bit confused between what's a tendon and what's a ligament, but that's a basic way to think about it. Bone to bone is ligaments, and that's going to be a passive structure, so they themselves don't have any contractile fibers, they can't move themselves, and so they're generally going to be more stabilizing at end of range. So if you stretch one way, you know, in this case, if you're extending, so if you're bending back, then the ligaments at the front of the vertebra will become taut, and that's going to limit movement. And then if you flex the other direction, the ligaments on the back of the spine are going to limit that forward flexion. So ideally, with the body, you know, those structures are very resilient, and they'll, if you load them more, they respond to that slowly. But the issue is that often people kind of ramp up their activities too much. They go to real extremes too quickly. The ligaments aren't quite able to do it. So you can deload those ligaments by strengthening and utilizing your active structures a bit more. So what this is sort of saying is if you really go into that end range, then you're, I guess, limiting some of the active structures you can use and really forcing that end range stress on the ligaments.
Something you said there, and the reason why I brought this point up is because this is really important, especially with deadlifts. And someone in our tribe recently put a video up, and there was a lot of comments in there about people sort of suggesting maybe to do it not quite correctly, and I jumped in and spoke about it. The reason why the deadlift and the squat are considered the most dangerous lifts is exactly what Phil has just said there. It takes a lot of time for the ligament structures to strengthen. It takes a lot of time. I'm talking years, not months, years of practice. And the deadlift and squat are two movements that really put high demand on all of the structures in the body and all of the systems, and the mobility and the flexibility and the strength and everything. And there's a lot that can occur and go wrong, you know. And it's so important that you bank reps and you bank workouts so that the ligaments have time to strengthen over that lengthy period before you ramp up the load really, really quickly.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But then also, like, I guess why it is so complicated is there's so many things to think about. So things to think about what's happening in your knees, your hips, your back. So there's, which means that getting that exactly correct is going to be a bit harder, which means that those active structures, maybe you're not going to utilize them as well, and therefore you're putting strain that maybe you're not able to handle onto those ligaments. But the good thing about you know, training with someone who can give you really good advice rather than just going in and, you know, giving a squat, like just looking at someone from across the gym and trying to copy what they're doing. If you're getting really good instruction, then if you can strengthen up those active structures, then I guess that will, you know, give you more time to, like, you should be able to do squatting. Squatting is definitely not dangerous, but as long as you just have your end goal in mind, like, you don't need to, like, most people aren't going to be competing in some competition in a few months. Like, you just got to think about that end goal. So you just want to slowly give your body time to develop, because your muscles, they'll start to hypertrophy. You'll get stronger muscles, bigger muscles after sort of 6 weeks. But then your ligaments, definitely, like, that process only really begins in 3 months. So the common mistake people make is just, like, their muscles really strengthen, and also you get neurological changes even quicker than that. And so you're like, oh, I used to be able to do a 50 kilo squat, now I'm going to do 100. But, you know, your ligaments only used to doing that 50 kilo squat. So you just got to give it time.
Awesome. Yeah, just understand there are different systems working and strengthening at different rates. Should we head out on the gym floor?
Yeah, before we do, if you've just tuned in, please hit the like button, give us some love. It really, really helps us. And leave a comment with your name so that we know and where you're watching from, so that we can give you a shout out. And if you've got any questions...
Well,
Well, hang on, we can talk about that at the end. Okay? If you've got any questions, put them in the comments section, because we're going to go on the gym floor now, demonstrate some stuff, and then when we come back in, we'll answer your questions, and we're going to talk about a weightlifting belt.
We're going to talk about the big mistake that people are making when they lift heavy, and they've just given it up, which completely spoiled my entire show, but it's all right.
Start
again. You can probably guess what the big mistake is now.
All right.
All right. So, from a base level, and I haven't actually thought about what we're going to do here. So, from a very base level...
I thought a little bit about it. What were you going to say?
Well, let's just take it from an absolute base level core training through to what we do. Because I'm sure what we do is a lot more advanced, more complex movement patterns. So, let's go around between the three of us and demonstrate our favourite base level core training exercise.
Oh, when we have such a good model right here, you know, we can...
Well, my favourite base level core exercise, honestly, for me, is a hollow body hold, a bent knee hollow body hold. So just coming from here and tucking your chin in, lifting your shoulders up, so that you're really creating spine flexion. So your abdominals are flexing and pulling your spine into flexion, and then lifting your feet just 2 inches off the ground, keeping your shoulders down and relaxed, and are holding that position. And the reason why I like that one so much is because it just helps to put us to create this strength in the abs that is really lost. And it's not training what Phil was referring to more as the local muscles. This is training more global muscles, but it's a movement that we use in the unified movement system. And in gymnastics and calisthenics a lot, you need to be able to have that strength to be able to create those movements. So that's my favourite beginner core movement, for sure.
I'll say the way that, and this goes to what we were saying yesterday, it's very, core training is kind of very specific to the individual's needs. So if I'm training a woman who's just gone through childbirth and she's got abdominal separation, then I will probably be doing very, very basic core activation drills where we might do leg drops after activating TA, and we'll use palpitation to feel that transverse abdominis. I start flat on the back first of all because it seems to be easier to focus on core activation. Then I will progress to kneeling core activation drills. We can do leg, opposite arm and leg lifts. We can do bear crawling, things like that. And then from there, I will progress to single leg movements, like getting you up off the ground, any side step up, any single leg deadlifts, any single leg squats. Anything where we remove stability is going to progress the core and make it more challenging. And that's kind of like how I like to go. Then the progression from there is more heavy bilateral movements and things like what Rad's doing. You can do like Russian get-ups off the floor where we are holding a weight and we climb up off the floor, all sorts of different stuff. But anything where it's a unilateral load, so the body has to stabilize itself, is going to work. And I'm a really big fan of anti-rotation movements for core. So Palloff press, half kneeling Palloff press, standing Palloff press, windmills, things like that.
I thought we were just giving our one favourite core exercise. I didn't realise we were giving away our repertoire. Our repertoire of core exercises.
I think the thing really important to think about there is that Yani was getting to is that all of it is about having your end goal in mind. So if you're going back to play soccer or, maybe like triathlons or something like that, you might be looking at something slightly different to what someone who is doing just hardcore gymnastics is doing. So the way that the exercise that Rad was explaining at the beginning, that's going to be such a good start to going towards something, like that kind of more end range gymnastics exercise, which I know a lot of you are really looking to do. But yeah, when you're looking at that more sort of single leg stability, that's much more sort of, your running relevant, like your sports relevant movements. So I think having that end goal in mind is the most important thing to think about when you're deciding on your exercise progressions. So,
sure.
And the other thing to think about as well is with Rad, what he was showing there was a really great exercise for sort of those global muscles of spinal flexion. And so with just like when you're doing any, pushing or pressing exercises upper body, you probably also want to be training your pulling muscles. So I guess like with your training, you guys also do you'll have an example of an extension movement as well. Now, this has got an arch that we were just talking about is maybe not ideal for when you're lifting heavy with that end rate arch, but it's a really good way of strengthening those muscles in a,
we also do the side dish as well.
Exactly. So you're really
from all different angles. So
yeah.
Coming around like that.
So you'll see, with the unified movement system that it really is that sort of 360 degree sort of like global strength of the trunk, which is so important.
Yeah.
And all of those progress to an end range. So that's going to be, the final movement, which might be a front lever or a side lever, like all of those are kind of just progressions of these basic exercises.
Yeah, and I'd like to say, like this whole topic of conversation for yesterday's show and today's show came from a couple of people saying, hey, you guys never talk about core. What are your thoughts on core? And the reason why we don't is because we all believe that core training is just blown way out of proportion for what it needs to be in certain parts of the fitness industry, in certain circles, and that our system just takes care of it the way that we do things here. And if you didn't watch yesterday's show, unless you have specific needs, where you like a woman who's recovering from childbirth or certain things, that generally speaking, a lot of training just takes care of the core, things like squatting and deadlifting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we're not demonstrating that extreme rehabilitation much, and the reality is that, using the issue intensity continuum, that base level core activation would be handled by someone like Phil, most likely. So if we had someone come into our system and program that had those sorts of high level needs, they'd be working with a physio to get through that base level, get them back on their feet, and then they'd be into the UMS program the way we train everybody else. We probably would refer them out if it was that extreme.
Yeah, we would. We used to work with people like that, but we made a decision that we weren't going to do that we were going to refer people like that to someone like Phil, and that we were going to work with people that were a little bit further along their journey. And for that reason, yeah, when somebody walks in and says, oh, I've got this, this, and this, where they would require those movements, we refer them on rather than...
Not because we didn't feel qualified or we didn't want to work with those people. It's just that in the gym here, in our environment, we're mostly a group in exercise centre. So we have, usually around 15 or 20 people all working together. And yes, they're working on different progressions. I guess one of the keys to the UMS program is the ability to regress and progress movements with people. But at that really base level, that person needs individual attention.
It's not just that, it's the concept of staying within your lane. And if we were doing that kind of stuff plus what we do, it'd be like a physiotherapist like Phil also teaching people how to do handstands. That kind of...
Yeah, something I'm not. I could.
Well,
not at all.
Stay within your lane, exactly. Like Phil's not great at teaching handstands.
There are better people to do that. My last point on that.
We'll come back into the office.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to demonstrate, and I'll get you to do it, is just grab a barbell and demonstrate a deadlift or a Romanian deadlift, and I want to show the difference between extension and bracing. And because this is a big mistake, and what we're going to talk about in there to wrap this up is, can you take your shirt off? Is that possible? Oh, you'll have your little mic. Yeah.
Any excuse.
Possible. Yeah. It's just that Rad's got hyperlordosis because he's got a pars spondylolisthesis in his back, so he can really show extension, unlike no other. So let's show a deadlift and someone going into hyper extension, excessive extension in the back. So you see this often. People rip the bar and they lean back as hard as they can so as to emphasize the joint lockout. And then let's show a brace activation and using the glutes at the top, but not hyperextending. So see the difference here? This is still lockout in the joint. He's actually using more glute here, and he's not hollowing through that cavity and switching off those systems that we spoke about earlier. So this is what you want to be doing, and it's the same in a squat, it's the same in a deadlift. You want to try to brace. Now, we're going to talk about using weight belts in the studio in just a sec, and one of the biggest reasons why I like a weight belt is because it gives you something to brace against. We used to think, and there was a notion that weight belts switched off the core. It's quite the contrary. Under EMG studies, they've shown that a weight belt, the use of a weight belt, can actually emphasize the core and the abdominal muscles because you're bracing against it. And it's the same as if someone had a really, really poor connection, neural connection to a glute, a glute med or a hip stabilizer, getting down there and palpating it whilst they do a movement helps the brain to connect to it and feel it so that they can actually use that muscle a little bit more. The belt does the same sort of thing, and it also, of course, gives you a little bit of safety and stability too because it helps tighten everything in. We'll go in and finish the discussion inside. So in a moment, Richie's going to bring up on the, we've got lots of cool questions and comments coming through, guys, that we're going to get to in just a sec. In a moment, Richie's going to bring up a belt, and you may as well do that now, Richie, when you get sorted. Hello, Steve
Yeah, hey,
from
Steve.
Melbourne.
So I'll answer your question quickly then. So Steve watching from Melbourne, I have a question about squats. I'm having a tough time staying upright and often fall backwards when trying to get my feet closer together. The first thing I'd ask you is why are you trying to get your feet closer together? Is that your most comfortable position? Because you don't have to have your feet closer together in a squat. You should have your feet where they're comfortable for you. So play around with that. And if you're falling backwards, maybe you're standing upright too much, man. Like you need to counterbalance the barbell. The barbell sits on your back, so you can't stand upright too much.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if they've got it in a high bar position or a low bar position, because that would really, just definitely affect how you're putting the weight through your body. And if you're putting your weight through your heels, that's a really nice way of getting a good hip hinge squat. But yeah, I guess you kind of want to aim for more of that midpoint. Of your foot,
You want to feel like the ball of your foot and the heel are pushing off the ground. Don't shift the weight too much back over the heel.
Just quickly, while we've got this image up, so this is a company called Pioneer Fit in America. They do arguably the best weightlifting belts. What you can see there is our favourite belt, which is called a lever arch belt. You've got two options. You've got a prong belt, which has the two prongs that come through holes. They can become a little bit fiddly. The lever arch is a little bit more expensive, but it's a much nicer fit. You've used them before, training with Bass.
Yeah, trying
I've
to use
used
the belt ones where it's like when you haven't just got that
prong,
simple lever. Yeah,
yeah.
the prongs are awful.
Yeah.
You're trying to take it off at the end when you're just sick of it. And
They
lever.
can get a little bit fiddly. So
The
this
lever's
is a
good.
10 millimeter lever arch. They come in 13 millimeters. For most people, that's overkill unless you're lifting hundreds of kilos and you're a really big unit. The 10 millimeter lever arch belt is absolutely fine. Now, how does this differ from the sort of weightlifting belts, the fabric weightlifting belts that you can pick up from your local sports store? These are the premium. This gives you much better support, and they last forever. So I've used a 3 millimeter weightlifting belt for many, many years, and that was okay. It did the job. It gave me a little bit of support. It helped me brace against it. But if you're serious about your lifting and you really want to take it far, then I'd be investing a few $100s in a really good 10 millimeter lever arch weightlifting belt.
Yeah, it's a safety thing. I mean, I've tried it a few times with those Velcro belts, and when you're in the middle of a lift and you're counting on bracing against that belt, if the Velcro suddenly lets go, then it's a bit scary. Maybe that was just a sign I was eating too much like a powerlifter rather than else. But yeah.
So I've just two things. The first one is, guys, if you've just tuned in, please hit the like button and tell us where you're watching from and what your name is. It really, really helps us. And the second thing is, how pro does our show look? I've never seen that happen before. Richie's done
split.
Richie's done some little thing. We're really moving up in the world here with our special effects.
He's just learning how to use the software, that's all.
That's what it is. Oh, look at this.
Yeah.
Now we've got another.
So that's Pioneer. You can find them on Instagram at pioneer_fit. The gentleman there who owns the company's name is Matt. And yes, tell him that Rad and Yani from Unity Gym sent you, and he won't know at all who we are. But
yeah.
But,
I'm going to go into Stephen's question. So you're saying you're talking about body weight squats. That's an easier answer then. So try elevating your heels. Try putting something under your heels, maybe probably 1 to 1.5 inches, because he's saying that he's falling backwards when he's doing it.
I'll tell you straight up, mate, it sounds like it's an ankle dorsiflexion mobility compromise. And you'll know very quickly if you elevate your heels or if you allow yourself to go right up on your toes as you squat. If the problem goes away, then you'll know it's a dorsiflexion issue. And try going wider and turning the toes out and experiment with that and just see whether that helps. You can work on dorsiflexion. There's a couple of things that if it's like you've rolled your ankle and you've got some scar tissue there, that can be broken down over time. But if you've got a bone sort of issue there where and this happens a lot, where your dorsiflexion in the talocrural joint is restricted, there's not a lot you can do with it. You've got to play with different foot widths. Get some 16 millimeter lifters. When you're lifting shoes is a great way to squat.
Yeah, I mean, the most common thing is probably tight calves, eh?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so that dorsiflexion limitation is basically when your calves are tight and you're not able to, I guess, get your knee forward towards your toes. So
Yeah.
tight calves can
And
be a
you've
real...
asked what's the best thing that you can do, or what's something that you can do besides doing foam rolling and stretching on the calves. Try doing a 30-day squat challenge. Squat for 30 minutes a day for 30 days, just squatting, sitting down, and watch what happens to your squat.
That's the second best thing you can do. The best thing you can do is join our UMS online program, post a video in our movement mastermind group so we can actually have a look at it and really, really help you out.
And
Because
remember,
at the
you can get a
moment
1-month free trial if you want. You just got to click on the link.
You could literally, and I mean this, Steve, go in, click on the link, get the 1 month free, post a video of your squat so I can analyze it properly. I'll even get Phil to have a look at it too. We'll be able to give you some real feedback because right now we're flying blind and we don't really know what's going on. We're just coming up with stuff. And then you can just quit your subscription. You don't have to pay anything, and we've helped you with your squat.
Ideal. I just want to get on that point that you so rudely interrupted me before,
Yep.
where we were talking about, I guess, the difference between like staying in a lane and referring kind of like the complex acute stuff to the to see someone like a physio. And I just say with the word rehab, I think it's just so poorly used sometimes, and it really. I guess just limits what I think rehab should be, where people say like, oh, you're doing rehab exercises and then you like somehow you graduate into like
Real
something else.
exercises.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that you should have that sort of mindset that rehab really is just a continuum.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're going from this acute stage, sure, but you're still able to do stuff when you're in acute injury. You've
Yeah.
just got to find and talk to your physio about what you can be doing, because there's always something you can be working on
Yeah.
that will get you towards that end goal. But I think that's the thing that you got to be really clear on is like, what do you want to get back to doing?
Yeah.
And then how can I do things now that will get me back to doing what I want to do? Because so often people injure themselves. They're like, oh, I've got to rest for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
They do nothing for 6 weeks, and then they want to get back in where they were before. And
It's
that's
such a good point.
you really
That
then
is
just
such a
need to
good
start your
point.
6 weeks again. So
Yeah.
really find someone who can guide you into that step-by-step process. So when you are in that acute phase,
Yeah.
you can still be preparing your body to get back to doing what you're
Yeah.
going to do.
Maybe we should start a whole new trend, which is there is no rehab, there's just regression and progression.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
You heard it first here, folks. You heard it first here. There is no rehab, there's only regression. We should get that on a t-shirt.
Could do.
That's what can go on the back of your t-shirts.
Perfect.
So Eric has tuned in, and Eric is saying he's watching from Washington, D.C. Thanks for tuning in, brother, in the US. And
Hey,
our
Eric.
videos are absolutely changed my understanding of flexibility and mobility. The point on pain was great. Thank you very much. And Eric is saying that I'm dealing with either a meniscus tear or bursitis tendonitis of the knee while still trying to improve ankle mobility. I didn't realize how much the pain was restricting me until you guys emphasized that. My advice, we'll see what Phil says on this, I'd be getting an MRI on that to find out what it is that you're dealing with, because I almost didn't get an MRI on my knee, and when I finally did and found out that I had a meniscus tear, immediately knew that there were certain things that I was working on that were causing me slight discomfort that were actually some of the worst things for me. And what I didn't know about the meniscus is that I knew that it had low blood supply, but I didn't know that it had low nerve supply as well. So when you can use pain as an indicator for success or for going too far with muscles, with something like the meniscus, what I've been told is that when you feel pain, you've already gone too far. So you need to understand what you can and can't do. So that's what I'd be doing. Phil, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd say that I guess the most important thing you can do at the moment, Eric, is you go and see a physio, or a physical therapist if you're from Washington.
Yep.
So go see a physical therapist who can really accurately diagnose exactly what's going on there, because the management for a bursitis is quite different to a meniscus. A meniscus, there's so many different types of meniscus injuries, so you can have different types of tears that do change the management quite a lot. So I definitely go and get that sorted. I think always going to imaging the first time is not the right approach. So you really want to see a good practitioner who can accurately diagnose rather than just going for imaging, because sometimes your limitations might be caused by something that isn't actually going to that doesn't match up to the imaging. And I think that's a really important thing that is hopefully people are starting to understand now, is just what's happening on imaging doesn't always exactly
Yeah,
relate to your
it's got to
function
be.
and
It's
your
got to
pain
be. It's got to be a
experience.
combination
It's more
of imaging
confirmatory.
plus. Yeah.
You got to have an idea
Yeah.
of what's going on after a really good subjective and objective assessment with a physical therapist, and then have imaging to confirm.
Yeah.
I'd say that that's definitely going to limit your ability to load up that knee flexion, so putting weight through that really bent knee. But just as we were talking about before, when you're getting down to that squat position, it's a compound movement where you've got your hips, your knee, and your ankle are all working together to get you down to that squat position. So there's no reason why you can't work on your ankle mobility just in a not fully flexed knee position. So doing exercise like stretches or mobility exercises where you've got a straight knee or even just a partially bent knee is a nice way that you can keep progressing, just like that idea of regression and progression, and you can work on your hip mobility and you're just letting your knee settle down until you get it diagnosed. And that way you're still moving forward. You still climb up that ladder to be able to get into that nice squat position. So that'd be
Awesome.
my point.
Cool. And
Yeah,
if your
awesome.
wife's telling you to do that, if you're married, you should have learned by now. Listen to your wife. Your
Yeah.
life will be a hell of a lot easier.
That's exactly right. Okay, I want to rip through some quick shout-outs before we bring this in for a landing. Robert Burwell has asked, I'm interested in hip mobility for squatting as a topic. Robert from USA. Robert, thank you very much for tuning in. We have heaps of hip mobility, really good stuff for squatting.
But we can do a show on that.
But we can certainly do another show on that. He's also said, hi Rad, Robert from USA. I'm 57 years old. I've been lifting for 41 years.
That's
Is
the same,
5
Robert.
minutes a good warm-up? I have never been injured. Okay, this is a really good question. Now, the warm-up, and Rad will add to this, should be specific and personal based on one of the big factors is your age. As you get older, you warm up slower, my guy. So as we've noticed, warming up becomes so much more important every year that we are above.
Can I jump in there
Yep,
if you
jump
wanted
in.
my opinion?
Yep.
At 57 years old, I would say 5 minutes is nowhere near long enough for a warm-up. In my personal experience, the only time I've ever injured myself or seen other people injure themselves is when they either do something that they're not capable of, which means that they're trying to do something they should have never been trying at all, or they didn't warm up properly. That's my experience. And honestly, I can put every one of my injuries down to one of those two things. So the warm-up is something that you really want to take seriously, and 5 minutes, in my opinion, is not long enough. That 10-minute warm-up that on the video that you've commented on, that I honestly believe is the minimum warm-up that you should do. I really believe that. That done exactly as we've done it in that video. We didn't do it in the 10 minutes though, but you have to take the knowledge there and put it into 5 2-minute rounds. And if you're 57, the only thing that I would say is I would potentially do 2 or 3 minutes of cardio at the start. And when I say high intensity cardio and I go straight into high intensity, at your age, I would ramp up that intensity for the cardio. I wouldn't just go straight into high intensity.
Okay, very quickly, Sharan, thank you very much. That's for the 10-minute lower body warm-up. Great video. We appreciate your feedback, my guy. Vinny Brown, since I've started following this routine, I've noticed that my mobility and flexibility for Taekwondo have become much more consistent. I have far fewer setbacks and I'm actually seeing gains in my flexibility at age 50. Thanks so much for what you do. Thank you very much, Vinny. We really appreciate that. That was also in response to the lower body routine that we did last
Eric's
week.
wife heard that. He's saying it made her happy.
Patrick Ryan, this is exactly what I need, as I had a bit of lower back discomfort doing deadlifts last night, which I think was due to an insufficient warm-up. From the UK, probably right, brother. We can't obviously comment on that specifically because we don't know what you're doing in your deadlift session, but there's a very big chance that a lack of a warm-up is compromising your ability to train at full potential. Scott, watching from the UK, will try these in my squat session tonight. As a power lifter, I'm always looking to give my body more reasons to move more and stay athletic, as the sport is less dynamic than most. Though doing those sexy spinal mobility movements in compression shorts might get me some quizzical eyebrows. Just don't look anyone in the eye when you're doing it, brother.
And don't wink when you're looking at anyone in the eye.
I disagree, do it.
Just do it, Phil.
Lock in.
Just go for it.
Go for it, mate.
Just throw it out there and see what
Absolutely.
you get back.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're single, who knows?
That's right. And Alex, thanks for the helpful step-by-step exercises to work on ring muscle-ups. I can do muscle-ups, but they're very sloppy. Now I know how to train them. Awesome, brother. We're glad we could give you some value. Guys, we've got pages of this. I don't have time to go through everyone's comments, but thank you so much for sharing the love. Every time you guys comment, every time you throw us a like, smash that like button. It helps with the algorithm. It helps us get our message out to more people.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
so
we're here for.
important, guys. This is, you know, we give away so much to you guys for free. All we ask for is just hit the like button and leave us a little comment. It means so much to us.
Okay, tomorrow, what are we doing? We're wrapping up the week. It's
It looks
Friday
like
in Sydney.
tomorrow we're going to be doing hip mobility that's going to help squatting.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good.
Great.
I think that's
Sounds
a good.
good.
I think that's a good topic.
Yep, absolutely. And smash up the likes if you like Phil on the show. How good is it, man? We've actually got someone who's smart other than us.
We've got
idiots
someone
here.
that's credible, that knows something.
And we'll see you all tomorrow. Now remember, guys, if you want to dip your toe in the Unity Inner Circle pool, you can download a free flexibility blueprint, and that is literally a culmination of 25 years of our training, the 7 biggest breakthroughs. It is not a program, it is theory. It is the big breakthroughs, the big lessons, the big aha moments that we had along the way that have led to our big flexibility gains. And also, of course, as Rad said at the start of the show, we have a 1-month free trial for anyone who tunes into our shows. It was originally for subscribers only, but I realized that I'm putting it in the description so anyone can use it. But it's for anyone who watches the show, and honestly, it's a great way to dive into our inner circle, connect with us on a deeper level, and get some online coaching. It's a very, very popular program. If you haven't already, check out the Google reviews. There are quite a few of them. People are raving. Anyway, until then, see you tomorrow.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, that's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's the
far.
consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.